Hello gamers, today I'm talking about a game that was very special to me, not necessarily because it's a good game, but because I played a lot of hours of it. And to be honest, before this playthrough, I don't even remember much about the game. That game being Sunset Overdrive, but before we talk about the game, let's set the scene, the year 2014. And my friends were slowly migrating up from 360 to Xbox One. I wasn't the most well off growing up. I also forgot to mention I'm probably 14 around this time. So I was one of the last to make the upgrade, gain an Xbox One for Christmas that year, and I received 3 games at the time, which is also the same amount of games I received when I first got 360, but that's not important. Those games being Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Minecraft, and of course, the topic of this video, Sunset Overdrive. And also around the same time I was very ill and I ended up having a lot of time off school that year. And the first bit of the next year, so I spent a lot of time in bed playing ye old Xbox. And well, Minecraft and Call of Duty Advanced Warfare were games I would play with friends who were in school at the time, so I spent most of my days playing Sunset Overdrive. But much like seemingly the rest of the world's population, I forgot about the game by mid-2015, returning to a somewhat normal school schedule and other games coming out, so I ended up uninstalling Sunset Overdrive for the hard drive space, completely forgetting about it until I saw it was on sale with the most recent Steam sale, and I picked it up for this playthrough. But the most shocking thing that I learned by replaying this game isn't how amazing it is, but that it was developed by the one and only Insomniac games. Which is wild now, because of course Insomniac is now owned by Sony, being brought in 2019, and of course now making the Spider-Man or Marvel's Spider-Man games. But I've always thought that Insomniac was a Sony studio anyway, being the developers behind both Spyro and Ratchet and Clank. But seemingly around 2011 Insomniac started working on Sunset with Microsoft or Microsoft Game Studios or whatever the hell that division of Microsoft was called at the time. The game went through many changes in its lifetime in development, originally starting off as a more serious DayZ-esque like zombie game and ending up as what can only be described as Tony Hawk meets punk rock, minus the skateboards, a game that was designed to use all the power of what was at the time the next generation of consoles in the Xbox One, aka the Media Box One. And it had a budget to do so, a whopping $42.6 million, which isn't massive, but it sits around the same as games like Tomb Raider 2013 and LA Noire, 2 very good games. Well, Tomb Raider's maybe a bit questionable and LA Noire doesn't, the facial features don't hold up as they used to, but for their respective times, the development seemingly coming along nicely right up until release, where the game is now out of Insomniac's control and it's up to Microsoft to sell the game, which is where the game objectively failed, selling around 1.9 million copies and most famously known due to a ransomware attack on Insomniac, the game only made them a profit of $567. But I don't think that was the worst thing. I mean, at least they made some profit, I guess. I haven't looked at the leaks, but I'm assuming that means profit after paying employees as well. But maybe not. And also some things that they learn from this game would help them in future endeavors. Like, don't take horribly cited publishing deals, as Insomniac may own the IP for the game, but Microsoft has the publishing right for 2 more games and any related DLC. So unless bitter enemies work together, we are never going to get those 2 games. Oh, and I guess the game only having a cult following also doesn't really help, and Microsoft also being the reason that Insomniac only made the $500. And I would also like to talk about how the game was marketed, but to be honest, I don't really remember much of the marketing. I just remember seeing the game at E3 one year, and then out the next. God, I miss E3, by the way. I guess the closest we have now is like Summer Games Fest or whatever Jeff Keighley is doing at the time. But now it's time to go back to 2014 and launch up Sunset Overdrive for some zombie killing fun. The game opens with the character customizer that is pretty good. Now, of course, it's no Saints Row, which is what I always look to as a highlighted, incredible customizing your boss, as they call it. But I was able to make a character that I was happy with, even if the game's hair coloring highlight system looked a bit odd. Maybe that was just the haircut I had. But anyways, as soon as we get control of our character, it's right to the races, running away from a horde of zombies that had just attacked a train we were using, or maybe it's a monorail. Either way, we were using it to get home. Getting about a block away from the house when the game gives us control and we are introduced to the best features of this game. That being the movement. As I mentioned before, this game is inspired somewhat by Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Now, you don't ride around on a skateboard, but your feet do have the ability to grind on every rail or rail-like object and water in the city. Also being able to wall run for short times. And all cars, bushes, and most treetops and awnings are made from some super bouncy material. And you can also boost mid-air, allowing you to glide an extra couple of meters to find that next rail to grind on or bouncy object to bounce on. All these features make the game feel very unique, especially when the movement has been incorporated into the combat. And after playing this game, you can kind of see where Spider-Man comes from. Now, they are completely different movement systems, but with Spider-Man being a more fluid sort of take on Sunset Overdrive's movement with more precision. Also, Spider-Man doesn't glide around on his feet.
Are you sure about that?
But they are both very good traversal systems. The only real jank in Sunset Overdrive comes from switching direction or dropping under a power line while grinding. This is most likely due to me pressing the wrong buttons and analog stick combinations at the time whilst trying to switch, but can't be my fault, it's clearly the game's fault. After figuring out the game's very enjoyable traversal system, it's time to make it to the apartment. Before arriving to the home, we run into a Hecker, a large version of the OD, which is this game's name for the zombies, or infected, which is a little bit more accurate lore-wise. But after tricking the heckler, who then runs off after another man, as we use the time to make it into the apartment and barricade the door and one of the windows, luckily also having a fridge full of beer to survive for a bit. As we see a note on the fridge about work earlier today, where we get flashback to hours before the OD took over the city. So, are we some kind of action hero or ex-army / police officer person? No. We work for Fizco Corp, the company behind the energy drink launching in Sunset City, called Overcharge, which you may have guessed is the thing that causes the outbreak of the OD, OD standing for overcharge drinkers. So you're not an action star, or you may be somewhat responsible for the outbreak in any way, or maybe you worked in the lab and you were trying to prevent the outbreak, but the executives, they didn't listen. No. You're a part of the sanitation team, the cleaning crew, working to keep the launch event for Overcharge clean by collecting cans and rubbish off the floor. Whilst taking a short break, your character takes out their phone where they play Sunset Overdrive, which, lore-wise, there's a lot of questions there, so I'm just going to imagine it's like Clash of Clans. That was hip back then, right? That's what all the kids played. I don't know, man. I was a kid back then, but that's not the point. Also, your character is not really referred to in the game. You don't have a name. I think they also go for the GTA system where you're kind of just called player or player. So that's what I'm going to refer to, player. Also, I will probably, when talking about my character, use female pronouns because I played as a female character. But of course, you can choose your sex at the start of the game. But none of that's particularly important, as while playing Sunset Overdrive on her phone, A seemingly drunk frat boy walks over, turning into an OD right in front of you, who then sees the character flee to the train station, where we then flash forward, because obviously the train is where we started the game, 17 days later when we have run out of beer and the OD have broken into the apartment. But luckily someone named Walter shows up to save us, which is kind of wild for me, as I saw the two characters that I make in video games in that scene. A risquely dressed woman with an open shirt and an old bald man with a full thick beard. So that was a experience for me. But anyways, Walter, after saving our lives, which by the way he does through a window that we seemingly did not barricade, so I don't know how the OD did not get in sooner. That's not important, as Walter is going to run us through the basics of melee combat and the art of staying on the move whilst fighting. After that little tutorial, Walter takes us to a tennis court where he shows us how to use a gun, and then back to his base where he introduces us to Two Hat Jack, a weapon dealer. The main way to get weapons in the game, and this game has a very interesting selection of guns, such as the AKFU, the Flaming Compensator, the Dirty Harry, and the TN Teddy, all of which perform differently enough to each other, making most guns feel distinct from each of their counterparts. But after buying a gun from Jack, we are then introduced to Floyd, who will cook up amps for you. But we will examine them soon. First, we need to go off and defend the base from scabs, the second of 3 factions of enemies you will encounter throughout your time in Sunset City. The third being Fizco security robots. As it turns out, Fizco Corp are trying to keep you locked in the city, blocking all kinds of communication to the outside world and building a massive wall around the city, publicly claiming that some kind of infection or flu has killed everyone in the city, and seemingly no one on the outside questions that a privately owned corporation has made this decision and not the government. But Walter has a plan to let the outside world know what's going on, as he has created a glider / plane car, but unfortunately our stupid character, well, she goes and screws it all up, destroying the plane car thing. So in order to help Walter, we are going to have to go on a quest to fix up the car plane. Before we are able to fix the plane car thing, Floyd calls us back to the base in order to cook up a bunch of amps. So what are amps? Well, they are kind of like the game's abilities, but in order to use them, you have to have some amount of style in your style bar filled up, which is the little lightning bolt bar on the top of your screen. This bar fills up when you grind and bounce your way around Sunset City. Now that I think about that, I probably should have worded that a little bit differently in the script, but I have said it now. So anyways, you get the bar to its required amount when you use the amp. It does not drain the style bar, so you can just chain use the amps. The only thing that will drain the style bar is if you fail a grind or miss a bounce, it will drain a little bit, and then if you stand still or just walk around on the ground for a little bit, the bar will slowly deplete. Now, as mentioned, there is different kinds of amps. There are what I like to call human amps, those being melee swing for an example. The one I used is called fireball. When you swing your melee weapon, a fireball comes out. Kind of self-explanatory, that one. Then there are dive bomb amps, which allow for an effect when you dive bomb into the ground. Which, if I'm being 100% honest, I didn't even know you could dive bomb in my whole playthrough of the game, so that's a thing. Then there are Hero, Hero Extra, and Epic amps, making the last of the human amps. These are all kind of the same thing, Hero and Hero Extra being abilities that are not tied to melee or dive bombing, like dodge rolling into enemies knocks them back and deals damage. And then there are epic amps. They are the same but require a higher style bar village to complete them. Lastly, there are weapon amps. Once a gun reaches level 2, you are able to add a amp to it to give it a little bit of an extra kick. For example, my favourite one being Burn Baby Burn, which sets enemies alight when you shoot them, which I also had on the Flaming Compensator because that's just, well, cool. Then on top of amps, there's something called badges, but I didn't really understand them or go through that menu at all because I don't know what they were, so they might have just been like sort of progression things, like you do this many things, you get a badge. But on top of the amps, I feel they're not needed. You're just adding clutter to your game at that point. It's like how every video game has like, oh, you've got your premium currencies and you've got your normal currency, then you've got your cosmetic currency. And I'm just describing Destiny 2, aren't I? So, after stacking ourselves up with some amps, which Floyd will contact you throughout the game, from new bases around the city to cook up more amps, but for now it's time to find those parts for Walter. Checking the docks, we run into someone named Sam, a kid from a rich elite school who can help us 3D print a propeller for the plane glider car thingy. So he offers to help us, only if we help him first, and his faction, the Oxford Scholars. Once we meet them, it turns out they are not quite like Sam. Sam being a genius who was at this elite school on a scholarship, where the others are like the kids from Gossip Girl. Kids of the elite. So in order for them to help us, we have to do a bunch of fetch quests for them, which include getting premium bottled water, as one guy will only drink this premium water and not tap water or any other branded bottled water. We also almost die while saving someone's robot dog. If it was a real dog, I get it, but a robot dog? Really? And finally, we are sent to some high-rise apartment to find out what happened to one of the kids' parents who were executives at Fizco Corporation. But it turns out that they drained his trust fund and got out of the city before anything ever happened, seemingly having some type of advanced knowledge. And he doesn't care at all, as now he doesn't have to listen to his parents. God, I love the detached lives of the children of the elite. But anyways, after helping all of them, they 3D print us the part we need as we return to Walter. But whilst he is attaching it to the car, we are attacked by the final group of enemies that I mentioned before, the Fizco security bots, who are sent to take out the rest of the human population inside of the quarantine zone. But after defending them off, we take flight into the air. And after we attack a massive blimp of Fizcos, we are able to escape when Walter sees the fact that birds are crashing into some kind of invisible wall. Quickly putting it together, Walter pushes us out of the car just before crashing into the wall.
We're gonna make it!
Good job, kid. Good job. Turn back!
What? Why?
It's too late!
And then crashing into the wall, proving that getting out of the city isn't going to be as easy as once hoped. And sadly, he will not be there to make the trip with us if we finally find a way out. So off to find this Troop Master Brillcream, as we find out where the troop's base is. After arriving there, however, it turns out that Brillcream has been missing. So, much like the Oxford Scholars, we are sent on a couple of quests for a character named For Kim, as the new troop leader really doesn't seem to be overly invested in finding their old troop leader. As we find out from our questing for Forkim, it was troop leader Norton who took over from Brillcream, who also threw Brillcream into a garbage truck, which unfortunately led to him losing most of his legs from the knee down and both his arms. But we were able to save him before anything else happened to him and bring him back to the troop, confronting Troop Master
For you
Norton.
to face the consequences of your actions.
I'll drink it!
Don't be a coward. Take your punishment like a man. Norton! No!
Confronted by the consequences of his actions, decides to drink, overcharge, to turn himself into an OD before being able to be consequenced. I don't think that's a real word. But anyways, for some reason, he also turns into a massive dragon OD as he's drinking the overcharge. Some of it spills onto an ancient Japanese dragon statue. Probably not ancient Japanese, probably made in some factory in 2008. But anyways, I don't quite understand why Norton turned into this massive dragon when no other OD really seemed to be like that. But hey, I got a boss fight to do, which eventually, by repeatedly grinding up Norton or Dragon Norton's spine, we are able to take him out. But unfortunately, Brillcream has lost what is left of his legs during the battle. Luckily for us, however, he is still able to design a boat with a pen in his mouth that should allow us to pass through the force field undetected by Fizco. But first, we need to find someone who will be able to build the boat for us. So, Brillcream sends us off to find one of his old friends. Now, this is where, if you've seen some of my older videos, you may know that it's somewhat common for me to play a game with a LARPing section. And somehow Sunset Overdrive is no different, as it turns out the boat maker we have been sent to get help is a part of a group who act and mostly believe that they are indeed in medieval times, all speaking in that sort of faux medieval English. The main man we need for the boat is the king, one King Ignatius. But unfortunately the king has fallen ill. As it turns out, a modern man is not very much suited for a medieval style diet, so we must complete a bunch more quests to bring him back to life. These ones having a LARPing twist to them, including collecting tree bark to feed to the king, but when that makes his already dire condition worse, we collect real food in the form of pigeons killed by a shotgun to bring him back to life. But of course, he gets deadly ill even more because eating shotgun killed pigeons is not good for you. But luckily, Wendy, the one kind of sane person, a part of the troop, sorry, that was a previous gang, a part of the LARPers, I guess, the kingdom, or I'm gonna call them the kingdom, has an idea, that being the simple task of giving the king modern medicine. But of course, because they all think they live in the medieval times, it needs to be done in a little bit of a different way, as Wendy has you strip down to your underwear to collect a bunch of leeches to your skin, and then handing you a bottle of Fizco medicine and makes you drink the whole bottle on your way to the castle. After, of course, tripping on taking that much medicine at once, you make it to the castle after some questionable hallucinations. But surprisingly, this works as the king is all better, and after helping him take out his rival king, who is a scab king who lives in a roller coaster. Kind of cool actually when I think about it. But after that, and after he survives getting shot during that battle and decides that medieval weapons are stupid and asks for an AK, which is the right choice, as it helps kill people, especially scab who are also using guns. He then makes the boat for you, and it's time to escape. After making the run through the city's canals, defending the boat and repairing it with trash, You make it outside of the walls, however you get a call from Sam, the preppy kid, not preppy kid person, that Fizco is going to destroy the city. So you convince Wendy to return to shore to save the city. And in order to save the city, you must first befriend another group of survivors, these being Day of the Dead style cheerleaders, who are based out of a local hospital looking after a bunch of children who have either been left behind or no longer have parents. And we need the cheerleaders, as they know how to get past all of the Fizco security to get into the HQ building in the city. But of course, much like the other factions, some tasks need to be completed to gain that trust. And much like me whilst playing it and then writing about it now, I think the game knew that the player base would be kind of fed up with this loop by now. So there is only 2 quests needed. Also, the player comments on the loop as well.
Okay, here's how this is gonna go. First I'll run some errands for you, then you'll like me, and then you'll help me. Not gonna happen. Trust me, works every time.
Saying how it's just going to happen like this. But first we need to make an epic sword for the cheerleaders, which they don't want at all. Somewhat changing the loop, and at this point I thought, oh my god, we're going to have to do so many more quests for them, it's going to be a hard bargain. But no, as we have one more last ditch attempt to get the girls to help us, we collect a bunch of people to host a rock concert for the sick kids, convincing the girls to team up with everyone else we've met throughout the game to destroy Fizco's city-destroying weapon. So whilst the cheerleaders and Sam from the Oxford sneak into the building, the rest of us take on Fizco bots outside of the building until it is found out that the building itself is the weapon. So the player finds a massive bottle of overcharge, shaking the bottle by attacking its base. It is then as the player rides the massive bottle into the building, dying in the process.
Giddy up, little doggy.
But then, pulling a Deadpool-esque changing of the story last minute, as we survive.
Whoa, wait a minute. That's the ending? Are you serious? Whose idea was that? Yours? Or yours? Bad move, guys. NeoGaf is gonna eat you alive. You know what? I deserve a better ending. I got an idea. Okay, rewind!
I just lost the best friend I've ever had.
Everybody, who wants to get drunk on milk and crackers?
But the building itself comes to life, giving us a final boss battle, chasing the walking building around the city. Luckily, the building has a power core on its roof, to the shock of the building itself. So after chasing the building around, grinding your way up its tentacles, shooting the power core and repeating this until the building is destroyed, laying to rest in the river between the two halves of the city. The final cutscene being the whole team having a massive dance party, with the game ending. However, there was one more cutscene after this, which shows rockets with supplies of overcharge being launched out of the Fizco Plaza, where the building used to be. But I'm choosing to forget that that even happened, as it's either a tease for the DLC, or the worst case situation, it was a bigger tease for the second game they had planned, if they had one planned. Which is sad, as we will never get a Sunset Overdrive 2, which I think is a bad thing, as games these days are slowly going the way of movies, where everything is a remake or a sequel or a prequel, and original IP is few and far between. Or maybe actually, now that I think about it, I'm just making that up because I really wanted a Sunset 2, because it's nothing like movies, and let's just forget I just said that. But it's wild, as in modern year we are more likely to get The Wolf Among Us 2 from Telltale, a studio that has existed, then not existed, then existed again, then not existed again. And it seems every year I hear something about a new Wolf Among Us game. But in order for us to get a Sunset Overdrive 2, two of the greatest rivals in the gaming industry would need to work together on it. With Insomniac of course being a part of Sony, and as mentioned before, Microsoft owning the rights to Sunset Overdrive 2 and 3 and any subsequent DLC. So this game might be impossible to make, but at least we will have this mashup of Deadpool, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and the whole punk scene to play. A game that, in my mind, there is really nothing else like on the market or in the world. It may not have had the most amazing story or gameplay in the world, but Insomniac really do make something that would stand out at the time of its release, even till now. Counting this game was originally meant to be some kind of probably awful DayZ rip, and now I truly can't think of another zombie game that is anything like Sunset Overdrive. Now maybe that is because it never really had success in its time, and it was just more profitable for developers to make the same zombie game as everyone else with a little bit of a different skin. But let's just say I'm happy they didn't, as this happily sits up there as the second best zombie game I have ever played, behind the amazing Left 4 Dead 2. And let's just say I'm very thankful that I saw it in this most recent Steam sale so I could pick it up and play it again. And I'm very happy I've been reminded of those many moons not feeling well, lying down in bed, grinding on some rails, shooting some zombies with a penis-shaped gun. As I truly believe Sunset Overdrive was something special, and I'm happy that it was released on Steam. Released on Steam, I believe, a year before Insomniac was brought by Sony, released just in the nick of time to exist on Steam, giving it that extra life that it had, that maybe it wouldn't have had if you had to go back to Xbox to play it, as there are very little games I will go power on my Xbox X or Series X or whatever the hell it's called for, the only one really being Saints Row and Forza Horizons, which I've already played for the channel, but I once again have gone back and played Forza Horizons 1 again, because it's such a good game. Click the link to video now, it'll be on screen, click it. As anyways, there's been enough for me, and enough about Sunset Overdrive for now. If you haven't checked out the game, I highly recommend you pick up a copy. But anyways, if you liked the video, leave a like. If you have played Sunset Overdrive before, let me know in the comments if you feel this strongly that the game is something very unique as I do. I have been J104. Peace.
Now that is how you end a game.